A wedding is one of the most cherished events in our lives, often symbolizing the beginning of new journeys and the celebration of love. On today's episode of Beyond Her Story, we are thrilled to introduce Vandya Bhat, a visionary entrepreneur whose passion for Indian culture and traditions inspired the creation of Vhakkal, a Konkani Bride. Vandya, who grew up in Bangalore and excelled academically, earning a gold medal at Jain University, has seamlessly blended her commerce background and entrepreneurship spirit into this Vhakkal. This innovative platform simplifies wedding planning by offering brides access to trusted vendors, wedding items, and crucial insights into traditional Amchi Konkani wedding rituals and customs. And today's conversation is all about Vandya's personal experiences that has shaped a service that makes wedding planning a delightful experience for Konkanis across the nation. Welcome, Vandya, to Beyond Her Story. It's such a pleasure to have you.
Thank you so much, Neha. It's honestly a great pleasure to be here and to talk to you about so many things. So thank you so much for inviting me and bringing me here as a guest. I'm really grateful. Yes.
So we'll start with the questions, and it's always the beginning which makes me very curious. We've heard of wedding planners, we have heard of wedding caterers, but Vakkal is something which is a new concept. So how did this idea actually occur to you?
Actually, I got married almost 4 years back. I mean, 4 to 5 years back, just before COVID. It was 2019. So the whole idea of Vakil was born during my wedding times. I am born and brought up in Bangalore. My husband, who is my now husband, he is from Mumbai. So
Yeah.
that time the wedding, we had decided that we'll do it in our native place, which usually happens in our community, right? So usually do
Correct.
it in temples or your native or the groom's native.
True.
So firstly, it was like three different cities. That is, I was in Bangalore, my groom was in
Mumbai.
Mumbai, and the wedding was in Udupi, near to Udupi.
Okay.
So the thing was the coordination between me and the wedding vendors and even my husband's side was becoming a little difficult. And when if things were in the same city, you are already aware of what's happening. You keep
Correct.
attending functions. You know whom to contact and maybe figure out the details. But if it's in a new city, you will have to do the groundwork right from scratch.
Very
So
true.
for me, that was the process. Even though I had some relatives who stayed there, I was somebody who was a very particular bride and who wanted things in the best way possible. So I am somebody who wants to do my own research also. So
Nice.
so hence that research started, I must say, during my wedding, and
Okay.
with whatever resources were available on the internet, I tried to figure out some vendors and how to connect with them, etc. But in the process itself, I found it difficult because being belonging to a Konkani GSB community, we have certain rituals, certain functions which is very particular to our community,
Correct.
like any other community for that matter.
Yeah.
So certain things it's difficult to explain if the opposite person has no clue about GSB weddings. So
Correct.
that's where I found it difficult. It was like all vague. So I
Yeah.
was not able to find one vendor easily. Firstly, is not able to find. Second, to be able to trust that vendor, whether he'll deliver or she will deliver or not on the wedding day, is a biggest task.
Very
So
true.
that was the next thing. However, with whatever available resources I had, I mean, with help of some good friends and relatives, I booked a couple of them. And the experience was great. I was doing everything. So everything was on my shoulder. I felt that burden. I felt that stress. Until the wedding day, I was calling the guests, coordinating, etc. So that is when the idea was Vakkal was born in my mind, at least, because I felt if I had to go through all of this, I'm sure every other bride goes through the same kind of difficulties. And especially coming from the community which has so much of good rituals and very detailed wedding processes, I thought,
Correct.
okay, it could be even difficult for the families also to manage. So it was mentally born during my wedding. I had some positive experiences during my wedding, some negative. some wedding vendors, didn't deliver as how they had promised me. So all those I made note of mentally, and of course, always we look back and we think, okay, we could have done it better.
Better.
But I'm
Yeah.
sure we did the best at that point of time.
True.
And after my wedding, I got married in November 2019, and within 3-4 months, the COVID hit. And that's when it clicked me that it would be even more difficult now for brides to look at, because they can't travel, they can't maybe research by going to the venues. And firstly, it was tough to get married also during that time.
Yeah,
With
correct.
with the resources which were available. So hence, I started the entire concept of Vhakkal. It's called Vhakkal, the Konkani Bride. So just to understand, Vhakkal is a Konkani word, and hence I've written hyphen the Konkani Bride for somebody
Yeah.
else who do not know Konkani to
Konkani.
understand. So
True.
the entire brand focuses on making a bride comfortable during her wedding in
Okay.
whichever manner. Okay, so I thought that if I can get all of these wedding vendors and wedding rituals and wedding items at one platform, she doesn't have to go in search of
Correct.
these things at other places.
Yeah.
So I wanted to create a trustworthy brand, and hence I started in June 24, 2020 to be precise. And it's
Okay.
been a 4 years journey from there. And the whole idea is to it like a one-stop shop for all your Konkani wedding needs. It's like a wedding planning portal also, because what I felt is that not everybody is aware about what's happening around. So
Correct.
it's important that we show them what is happening, what are the new ideas that comes into
Yeah,
weddings, etc. Because everybody like, I don't want to repeat the same thing.
correct.
So it started as a very on a very humble note, to be honest. But I mean, God's grace and of course, the support of all the audience and everybody, we are growing slowly, a bit by bit. Yeah. So this is where the idea of Vhakkal was born,
Okay.
and we continue to strive in different ways to how to help brides and their families to make the wedding arrangements, the processes as simple as possible.
So they normally say, right, new ideas are born out of our own experiences,
Yes.
which is very true in your case.
That's because of maybe the entrepreneurial streak somewhere was there, and I
Yeah,
felt
true.
okay, maybe this is where, and there was nobody who was in this field. That's
Correct,
another
correct.
thing. Nobody was offering it.
But I think I'm very sure that, starting during COVID, you said June 2020,
Yeah.
I'm sure it'll have its own set of challenges. It wouldn't have been easy. So if you can walk us through a few of the challenges that you faced while setting up your portal, and how did you overcome them?
So we started in June 2020, and it was more like I just started off on Instagram, because that is when the Instagram was sort of booming also, and everybody
Correct.
had a lot of time in hand because social
True.
media gained popularity during COVID, as you all know.
Yeah.
So Instagram and Facebook was growing, and I just started off on Instagram by with an introduction of what is the Saptapadi, etc. And we just started posting my own pictures. That was
Okay.
the first thing that I did, because that is what I had in hand. Because my photographer had
Correct.
just given the pictures, I just started posting it and tagging all the vendors who helped me during the wedding
Wow.
processes.
Hmm.
So like any startup begins, it was always through your friends and family. That's
Yeah.
where they come into picture. And firstly, it was never started for a business perspective, actually, because it was more like a helping sort of a portal where brides can come and have a look at it and book things on their own. So when I
Okay.
started, I realized that first I have to give out information to all these brides about who are available in this whole space, that is the wedding industry. So I
Correct.
started off with my wedding vendors, and then I slowly started connecting with my friends, asking for their pictures who are in this community, for my relatives, and started connecting with these makeup artists whom I had not booked during my wedding. So that was
Okay.
another thing. So my research on the pages that I had done during my wedding really helped me. I started connecting with them.
Okay.
Of course, it took a lot of time, but the process became a little simpler because they also had a lot of time in hand. So connecting to each of them took some time. However, their challenges I got to know, and they started sharing what this whole industry is about. So it was like a learning process for me also, because if I have to suggest somebody a particular vendor, I have to thoroughly know well about them, whether it's
Correct.
pros and cons. I'll have to give very transparently to my bride.
Correct.
Hence, in this whole process, I learned a little bit more about the ground level work that these people do and how actually things run. even after my experiences, but it gave more insight after talking to them. So I
Yeah.
connected with these wedding vendors for them to share pictures, because everything on Instagram and social media, as you know, works through pictures and videos, right?
Yes.
So they started sending me, and then I slowly started posting a little bit more about, what Amchi weddings are, what happens in every wedding, what are the rituals that happen. So slowly that built an interest. The challenges, I must say, the mainly was social media and Facebook. People think it's free and it's, just random and you can just do it, but of
Correct.
course it's not. It takes a lot of efforts, and it has its own learning process. So I attended a lot of online courses which were
Okay.
created on Instagram, how to build your brand on Instagram. Random courses I went, and the
Okay.
first 2 3 years I managed the whole page by myself with whatever little bit knowledge I have. And I did my own website also. I learned how to build a website and all of that, because again, time was in hand. Skill was something that has to be learned. So I just, upgraded myself and started my own website. So this whole thing, it was like a one woman show. Like, of course, we have great support from family and friends, but when you come to at the work of it, it's only you. So you'll have to sit and do
Correct.
it. So, like on an Instagram photo, you'll have to write the caption, you'll have to write what
Correct.
are the hashtags, you'll have to connect with a lot of people. So it had its own challenges, in terms of my brain has to think so much, and you have to be consistent. I think that's the biggest part in any
Yeah.
business, for that matter. Being consistent in with same commitment is, I think,
Yes.
is the biggest thing.
Yeah.
After a couple of months, maybe after a year, I connected with somebody who can do my website, because it was growing and people need it. So that's another journey altogether, because these agencies, etc., you're so new to it and you're a startup, and suddenly
Correct.
money comes into picture. So you
Yeah.
have to work, think about, whether I have to spend that much. Where is this even heading? Is it
Yeah.
profitable? Everybody starts asking you these questions. So how are
Very
you going
true.
to make money? So of course, all these questions to be answered, and maybe questions to myself also had to answer, whether it's going to click, whether it's going to happen. But I think the strong leap of faith that I took, that no, whatever said and done, I'm sure even if one or two brides can get some help and some peace out of this, I'm sure my mission and vision is met. So I took that leap of faith, failed a couple of times with certain agencies. But I think the fact that there was nobody in this platform who was providing this kind of information, the audience and the followers was supporting me, that helped. And that gave a moral boost also to me personally to sort of grow. Thanks to COVID, I must say, one of the good things is
Yeah.
we got like a lot of good time for the brand to grow. So
Yeah.
that way, I think it was very helpful. So it's a journey. I think
Yeah.
it's not like it happens in a day, because
Yeah.
now when we look back, people always think, "Oh, Vhakkal is very famous, and Vhakkal
Yeah.
you can just keep posting, and I want to get featured on Vhakkal." But the challenges and that
Yeah.
baby steps that you had to take during those first two base years is something that only I and maybe my husband, because I used to keep irritating him, he will know that
Very true.
how difficult it was. But I think for anybody who is on their entrepreneurial journey, one thing I would say, that it is important to have that faith in yourself, because the
Yeah.
moment you have that faith that you can do it,
Yeah.
then definitely it may take some time. You may face multiple hurdles, but
Yeah.
at least that faith in you will get you forward.
Yeah.
So and you won't figure it out all in a day, for sure you
Correct.
won't. Sometimes there are days where you will get ideas within minutes, especially
Yeah.
for your social media and how you want to run your campaigns, but sometimes it will take months together for you to think. Entrepreneur is always, there is always this whole thing that the moment it becomes a woman entrepreneur, it has its own challenges. I'm sure
Yeah.
every woman who's in this whole journey will relate to me. But I think the fact that we have that resilience to sort of move through it, I think is
Yeah.
what makes us different, in different ways. So
So now moving on to the next thing, like Vakkal's focus is on educating, apart from the, giving the details about the vendors and how to make your wedding eventful, you focus on educating the brides, grooms, and the families about traditional wedding customs, right?
yeah, yeah, yeah.
So why do you think this is so important in today's fast-paced world?
I feel because it's a fast paced world, it is important. That's where this whole idea came. I'll be
Yeah.
honest, because so again, this takes me back to my wedding time, because when
Yeah.
I was getting married and there's so many things happening. And after the day I got married, and I think I was sitting for lunch, and we were just sitting, and both of us, just me and my husband, looked at each other and we said, "Okay, the wedding is done." Like, we didn't live through it as such, when all those
Yeah,
things happening, because it's more about, okay, what's next? Where are the
correct,
guests? Is the food enough? Is the decoration right? Is the lighting perfect? Is the photographer there, etc., etc.?
correct,
I realized that in our GSB and Konkani community, there are multiple rituals which has very strong meaning and strong, scientific reason also behind it. So
correct.
I didn't know most of it,
Yeah,
when I got married, and I realized when I started Vhakkal, I realized that if I can use this platform to put across those things also, because see, now we have our ancestors and elders who are already in their, old age, in 60s and
correct.
70s, 90s,
Yeah,
and maybe some people who are living in native, like that is Bangalore or Udupi, South Canara side, may have some awareness about, things, the younger generation. But
yeah,
at large, if you look at it, after our ancestors, somebody has to somewhere document this and pass it on to the generation, so that we always will value the customs and traditions. So I felt that if social media, and if in case it can be brought out to this platform where I can explain rituals in the way that the younger generation will relate to, then why not? And I
yeah,
started doing some research on my own. I had this privilege of being a part of the Bhat family from
yeah,
both the sides. So they helped me a couple of times, and I called up some Bhat moms to just jot down some points and understand, because you can't go wrong also. There is always that
yeah,
fear. So even
correct.
today, I keep telling, it may not be the best way that I'm explaining a ritual, but at least if a bride, when she goes through each and every ritual, has my voice in her head, which is saying, okay, this is why we are doing this.
Yeah,
So if that can make, some sense when she's going through that ritual, I think I'll be very happy. So I started gathering information, and this whole Vhakkal, once the whole posting and giving ideas about wedding vendors, when it started, I started getting a lot of calls from brides about, how to manage the whole day, because they are
yeah,
they are like, see, I know wedding vendors, I know I'll book all of these people, but
correct.
managing the day itself is stressful, and of
Yeah,
course, previously managing the guests and everything, how to do it. So what I did with my experience, and after I spoke to a couple of brides, I realized that if we can chart out a good, a plan. I mean, whatever
yeah,
basic plan, based on our experiences, where I can explain them about the rituals, I can explain them about how the bridal looks work, and explain them about how the day goes and how they can manage their day, what they can eat, what they have to avoid, etc., etc. So I
yeah,
created like a small consultation sort of a thing called as Vhakkal consultation, where if a bride comes to me and she tells me, when this is the confused state I'm in and I have no
yeah,
idea what to do, I'll be like, firstly, stop worrying about it. That's what I always tell my brides.
yeah,
And I tell that, you have to first don't worry and everything will happen. I think because
yeah,
of late we have become so engrossed into just getting things done, like so
yeah,
instantly. We just want to, like, you order something, it will come to your house. So it's very instant, right? So
yeah,
firstly, there's nobody to tell you that, it will happen in the best way possible, more than, helping them with the whole idea and all. I think it was more about mentally also sort of making them understand it is going to be easy. So rituals per se, why I focused a lot, is because I want the culture and the tradition to be passed on in small way possible to all these
yeah,
people, because they will maybe pass on to the upcoming generations also. So I think the rituals part of it, that is why. So for example, I'll just give an example so that you'll understand.
yeah,
So we, our mothers tie this black beads.
correct.
It's called Dharimani in Konkani.
Yeah,
It's a black beads Mangal Sutra, like how they say in general terms, right? So uh, everybody just wonders sometimes, because not in every community they do this,
correct.
because it's specific to certain communities. But I remember in our GSB community, first mother gets you to the mantap and she makes you wear this first,
Yeah,
even before
correct,
your husband ties the Mangal Sutra to you, right?
correct.
So it's
Yeah,
always a question why. I mean,
yeah,
like, why is the mother doing this? And because you're getting married to this person. So I realized, and I was reading a book which was written by an old but mom, in small, some notes he had made, and he has told that how when we are younger and when we are infants, you are under only your mother's care. Like,
yeah,
she's the first person you are attached to, and you just she's the only contact you have basically as soon as
correct.
you're born. and she gives you that care, and they put that black tika, in our
Correct. Yeah.
uh,
Nazar na lage types.
nazar na lage types. Everybody does it. So that is how she protects her child. So now that she's reached her marriageable age and she's getting married, she's going away from her mother's protection types.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
She's not going to be around all the time. Mother is not going to look after her, maybe whether it's food, whether it's her health, whether it's her education, anything for that matter. So this is a reminder that mother puts to you that her protection is still with you forever. So
Wow.
when I learned that, I'm like, okay, this has so much of meaning, because the moment, if when a mother is doing this ritual for a bride and a bride knows about it, she will feel even more connected, and
Yeah.
she will never forget that moment in her life. Otherwise, it's only like, okay, they are putting Dhareman, let's take a picture, you pose, and it's done. So I
Yeah.
was like, if there is a meaning toward behind everything that we do, and if that can be communicated, firstly, she will remember and she will always cherish those moments, right?
Correct.
So this is just one of the examples. So like that, each and every ritual that we do, and I explain it to brides, and they feel, oh, this is why we do it. This is why we do it. So I get that happiness that, okay, something I'm able to pass on to them, and hence I think the rituals part of it is why I would like to focus a little more. And there
Yeah.
is of course deep research that has to go into, and maybe others also have to help. But this is like my humble efforts, whatever I can do from my end.
Yeah, but it's such a beautiful thought, Vandya, because like you said, it makes everything more connected, and when you know certain things and you're doing it, that's
Yeah.
that's a different connection that you have with maybe every ritual has some or the other family member associated, right? So
Yes,
that
yes, yes.
connection becomes even more stronger.
I think that sort of beautifies the whole process, and I want people to enjoy it. It
Yeah.
shouldn't be like a chore that okay, chalo, Bhat Mom told me to sit. I'll just sit. I'll get up. I'll put the varmala. No, I want her to feel through it. I want her to go through those emotions, and I think that's the whole point behind me explaining the ritual. So yeah.
Yeah, that's such a beautiful thought. And 100 brides is what you have consulted with, and you've given your expertise. So, how does it feel, and what has been the most rewarding part of helping over 100 brides plan their wedding?
It's been a very, very surreal experience. I mean, 100 brides, and maybe there are more brides who have just taken some inspiration from my this thing, but at least more than 100 brides somewhere I have connected, I have spoken to them. But I think the satisfaction that you get when
Yeah.
even she tells that, Vandya, thank you for telling me this, because I would have maybe ended up doing this mistake, or, thank you for explaining me these things, so that
Correct.
I had avoided all those unnecessary trauma in my head. When she comes back to me and she tells me that this is one of the this is what happened well, and this is because you told me this, and I kept this ready, I kept those things ready. For example, as simple as very simple things such as bangles. How
Yeah.
important they are for the weddings, right? So
Correct.
in the morning when the bride is getting ready, the muhurtam is running, and then everybody's like, okay, where is my bangle? And everybody's in hush hush. So I always tell them, keep them all organized in the way that you want to put it. So you just have to slip it on and
Yeah.
just go.
Correct.
Otherwise, you sit there, you do all that mix and match. At that point of time, your brains won't work. Nothing is gonna. As simple as that. Also, I
Yeah.
tell, because at the end of the day, these small things are the ones that actually
Yeah.
cause a
Correct.
big
Yeah.
fuss. So when the bride comes back to me and tells me that, Vandya, thank you for telling me this, and this is what made it better. Or even when the families come back and tell, thank you for explaining me this ritual. The husband side were happy, the guests were happy because we did certain things. So that is, of course, the most rewarding experience, because I feel somewhere with the intention what I've started, and somewhere it is met, at least little bit of it is somewhere through met,
Yeah.
and that makes me feel very happy. And of course, when your contemporaries or your families come and tell you that Vhakkal is everybody talks about Vhakkal, and in some ways possible. So we also feel happy that
Yeah.
we know a person who started Vhakkal. So that it's like the small joys of life at the end of the day, right? I mean, I'm not, of course, money, for every business, money is important, but I think beyond money, when you have the right intention,
Yeah.
and when you know that you have to go beyond a particular point to help some brides. So that's another thing. Like, I always feel, even if brides have taken my consultation and everything, and at the end of the day, if she's And it's not like a we do a video call for 2.5 hours and I explain everything. And after that, it's not like my connection is cut with her. I
Yeah.
keep in touch. I keep like in touch with them and to understand what happens. I keep asking them how much of your work is done. And so there's somebody who's sort of looking after them. They have to get that
Yeah.
feeling because
Correct.
parents are busy, etc. Right? So when they
Yeah.
get that sort of best friend sort of a feeling with Vhakkal, and when they can share things with me, there are
Yeah.
certain things to share. Like when they are this. Groom side family, some member told me certain things. I felt so bad, and I'm like, okay, if I can help her to ease that mental tension, then that
Yeah.
also is very rewarding. So I think to be able to help them beyond all of these, materialistic things is what makes the whole process rewarding. And I love weddings, so if I'm connected with them, and if I'm also in that whole joyful and a celebrative environment, so nothing like it. So it is equally rewarding internally also for me because I also feel okay, she's getting married and how to do it well and
Yeah.
etc. That keeps me also alive. So I
Yeah.
think that's the best part of helping so many brides.
Okay. That's really amazing, Vandya.
Yeah,
And now coming to your other part of it, your vendors and things, right?
yeah,
So it's not very easy to manage vendors and also
correct.
ensure that your brides have the satisfaction, right? There are some hits and misses sometimes that
Yeah,
happens.
yeah, yeah, of course, of
So
course.
yeah, so how do you ensure that the vendors on Vhakkal meet the expectations of the brides who are looking for authentic and quality services?
So honestly, I'll tell you, it is. I always recommend those vendors whom I have personally worked with
Okay,
and who have some sort of a personal rapport with, whom I can at least trust 99 to 100%. See, the chances of them missing out is always there, whether you book through Vhakkal or you book through anybody. But
correct.
of course, when I am, recommending them, firstly, I am not very. I don't hide things. That's the first rule that I have with myself and with my brides. If I know a particular person is, say for example expensive in the general
Yeah,
term, if he or she may charge beyond the normal price, I always tell my bride, see, this is how it's going to be and this is how much it's going to cost you, and these are
yeah,
the pros and cons with it.
yeah.
Okay. And after a point, I don't interfere between their communication because
Okay,
my work sort of ends when the moment I recommend them, they give me a feedback and they are comfortable that, this vendor is going to help me. They have that confidence that this vendor is going to help. Until then, I won't leave them. After
yeah,
a point of time, I don't interfere until she wants me to. So
correct.
I'm always in the loop of the communication, but how I have that trust that I've built with my vendors, I want the brides also to have a similar trust with the vendors, right? What is very important is being honest, right? So when
Yeah,
you're honest and when you're transparent, everything just works your way. So of
correct.
course the misses and hits, they also come back to me if something is not gone right with any of the vendors. They'll always say, Vandya, it was great, but this is what didn't work out in this way, maybe for whatever reasons. As a Vhakkal and as a bridal consultant, I realized that you have to go a step beyond
Yeah.
and make keep each other accountable for each and everything. So that is one of the ways I make it happen. Yeah.
And wedding industry is one such industry where there are new trends that keep coming up, right? Seasonal, yearly, everything.
Yes, yes,
So
yes,
how is
yes.
it? How does Vakkal stay ahead of these trends while maintaining a focus on tradition?
It changes every day, and
Yeah,
nowadays greatly inspired by these celebrities and what they do, and how we can
right.
sort of have a replica at least of their looks, etc. But I think what happens is when you have social media and when you have Facebook very widely available, firstly, the best part is brides come to me with a lot of things. They're
Yeah,
like, Vanya, this is what I saw, and can we do this in our manner? And then I explain to them how that can be tweaked into our rituals and customs. So,
okay,
being ahead of trends, of course, I, as a bridal consultant, I also have to be on my toes all the time. I keep
correct.
researching, and I even suggest about the bridal looks also. So, like, there's so many different types of saris and, looks that you
Yeah,
can carry. And, I love traditional wear especially. So, I keep
yeah,
researching about what are the new things that you can do. Especially in our community, we have that art work, the white
correct.
dupatta that we put, right? So there's so many new things that has come in that space. I mean, before it, I've seen my mother's wearing it. It was just like a white cloth with some small work, and now it's like embroidered. It has detailing. It has new fabrics, organza, tissue, etc. So I mean, as and when the brides come up with, and especially these particular brides, I love working with them because they're just smooth as like me. They know what they want and they're like, okay, Vanda, this is how it is. Like, just tell me how we can tweak it to this. There are some brides whom I also learn from, right? Like they come up with very different ideas, like hand painting on saris, and like we have to drape it in the Nawari style, like the kasu style. So on the kasu also, that that was just a trend that started by Vhakkal only, where you can put a hand embroidered borders in it. That was never thought of. And it was actually another thing is that it was my experience because I didn't have time and I had to just put a border and I had to just work around with the sari. So like the trends happen when you keep yourself aware of what your environment is in, and you keep looking for information, just like in any other industry. But yes, wedding industry changes every day. It is, the trend happens every day and nobody wants to copy each other also, especially like they want something different, like the bridal anything you might have seen. Like people come in so many different things, even though I like our traditional way of entering with the maternal uncles. That is what I totally propagate, because you'll never get a chance to do that again. Anything else you can do again and again, right? So I think another trend that I've seen is now even brides want to go back to how it was before. How our mothers and our elders, you might have seen so many brides wearing their mother's sari for the wedding. It is as strong as how it used to be, but that sort of makes me also feel that okay, they say old is gold, right? At the end of the day, mainly focusing on tradition is something that I don't leave. I always tell them to listen because how much ever you want to go here and there and want to make it all contemporary, our tradition is something that will always make you unique. So I try and somewhere fit that also into it in the best way possible.
One important thing, Vandya, I mean, what we have spoken until now is mainly about Vhakkal and Konkani weddings. So one question which I have for you is, along with whatever you're doing in terms of research and vendors and all that, it is also very important, like we discussed, to stay relevant on social media, be it Instagram or Facebook. And it is not easy because you never know what works. You don't know how it works, especially when you start off. So I want to understand, how have you been able to manage that?
So one is you have to keep showing yourself on the social media also, because it is not about a brand per se that will sell. It is always the story and the person who is very important, because that is where the younger generation is going to connect to you. Firstly, being real, showing your face, the person behind the brand is very important. And thirdly, as much as possible, be authentic and be clear about and be responsible about the kind of content that you're putting. So when it comes to my rituals videos, I'm very careful because it should not hurt any sentiments. It should not become something else. And it's a very thin line, trust me, there is no right route map that you can follow. I have attended multiple sessions on social media and Facebook, and actually it's the biggest challenge, I'll tell you, is the social media keeps changing every 6 months. Every 6 months, and the way it works, sometimes it pushes your content, sometimes it doesn't. It's a challenge on its own, and it's only by trial and error, and someday, one day, it'll just click. So again, it's like another entrepreneurial journey. You have to just keep working on it, keep putting. It's like a baby, so you have to keep nurturing it, and don't listen to random people and random advisors who are telling do it this way. This clicked for me, because you who has started the brand knows the person. He knows what works best for your brand.
Correct.
Always keep that in mind, because 100 people will tell you 100 things. Only thing I would say is video formats are working really well currently, like shorter reels and etc. If I go by technicalities, but more importantly, you see a pattern, see how your audience is responding to different kind of content. Experiment. I would say please experiment, because sometimes what you think may not work might actually work also. You never know. But it will click if you are consistent, if you're honest, and if you know that this is what my audience is looking for, then definitely that's going to happen. So for sure.
I think this has been a wonderful conversation, Vandya. One is, of course, I relate to a lot of things that you're talking about in terms of One is my own Wonder Woman Wednesday.
Yeah.
Second is me being a Konkani. And when you talk about rituals, I'm able to relate to a lot of things that you just said. But I think, like I said, this conversation is much more than that. People should look into the way the process has been, and how everyone can learn from somebody's journey. For me personally, it's been a lot of takeaways, because I too need to learn a lot of these things to grow our brand as well. So thank you so much. It's been an amazing conversation.
See, I always say the first 100 and the first 1,000, if you see in social media and all, is the most toughest, because that's how you'll feel like giving up. You'll feel you're failing, and you're like, "Hey, it's not working out. I just want to give it up." And like you said, it's not easy. But I think in a world where everybody has a different mask with different people, it's very hard to find two things. One is somebody who's very real and somebody who's kind. Like just like what you're doing. It's not somebody that you're featuring who has established, who has, achieved something, right? So everybody has a story, and that's such a beautiful thought, because everybody has to be heard, everybody has something to share, and we have something to learn from each and every person. So there again, you're being kind to people and you're being real. So these are the two things which is very rare to find in today's world, and I'm sure it's going to get more difficult in the coming years. Being real and being kind is something that I always propagate, not only in brands but in life also. So just like how you're doing this beautiful podcast and this reel and this whole concept is something that literally highlights these 2 points. That's why I think it was easier to connect to you also for me. And it's been a wonderful talk, and I'll always remember this, because this is my first podcast or a first video that I'm doing with somebody who's asking me questions about my brand. So this is going to remain really special for me. So thank you so much, firstly, for identifying and inviting me to the podcast, because it gives me a chance to speak about these things. And if in case, even if one person, like I say, it can make a difference, and if they can continue in their entrepreneurial journey or anything that they're doing in life in general also, I'll be the most happiest. So thank you for connecting with me and having this. And I wish you the best. And I really pray that, you grow multi-folds. And one day I'll always tell that, okay, I was featured on Wonder Woman Wednesday. And
Thank
like
you.
this old person who was there in their episode. So I really wish you the best, and may all the success be yours. Okay, truly.
Thank you so much, Vandya, and the feeling is mutual.
Yeah.
And all the best to you and your brand Vhakkal too.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thank you.